Okay, so I'm guessing that was the box that was going to pop up. Okay, amazing. Good afternoon for you guys in your time zone. It's morning for me, but either way, I'm super excited to be here. Welcome to Black in Marine Science Week 3. I'm Jolyn Pinello, a UC Riverside undergrad and marine microbiology major. I will be moderating today's discussion with Doctors Corey Evans, Stanton Belford, and Tiara Moore. Today's panel is about what PIs are looking for from students and how to successfully send a cold email if you want to work in their lab or be a graduate student in said lab. Viewers are invited to join the discussion via BIMS TV. And we have an awesome group of panelists lined up for you today, and I'm excited to introduce them. I'm going to go one by one with you guys. So first, I have Dr. Corey Evans. Dr. Evans is an evolutionary biologist. Hi, is an evolutionary biologist broadly interested in the development, evolution, and ecology of phenotypic diversity in teleost fish. His research integrates developmental biology, climate modeling, biomechanics, phylogenetic comparative methods, and ecology to understand how phenotypes develop, evolve, and interact with their respective environments across multiple timescales, and how intrinsic and extrinsic development and environment, respectively, mechanisms influence patterns of phenotypic diversity. So cool. Next, we have Dr. Stanton Belford. Dr. Belford is an associate professor and program coordinator of biology at the University of Tennessee Southern. His current research uses genetic analyses to identify zoantherians and their symbionts at reefs along the northeastern coast of Toco, Trinidad. His annual benthic surveys at these reefs have collected data on biodiversity for over 15 years. Lastly, we have Dr. Moore, Dr. Tiara Moore, completed her bachelor's in biology in 2011 at Winthrop University in Rock Hill, South Carolina. She then received her MS in biology with a concentration in environmental science from Hampton University in Hampton, Virginia, where she conducted research on the water quality of the Chesapeake Bay, linking sediment, oxygen demand, and nutrient cycling to the eutrophication of the bay. Currently, Dr. Moore is the Black and Marine Science Program Lead at the Nature Conservancy. So awesome to meet you guys. I want to be just like you guys when I grow up. Okay, so we're going to get started with some questions. And the order we are going to go in for questions, we're going to start with Dr. Evans. And then once you're finished, we're going to go to Dr. Belford. And then lastly, we're going to give it to Dr. Moore. Okay. So let's start with some logistics. How many emails do you think you receive each year from people wanting to be a graduate student, undergrad researcher, or volunteer in your lab? So Dr. Evans, you can start.
For me, it's close to maybe 60 or 70. If I'm advertising if I actually put out like an advertisement, close to about 120. So a lot, yeah.
A lot. Okay. Dr. Belford?
So since we are mostly undergraduate, we have, just barely 800 students. We don't really receive that much. We have a really, easy task in that we spot these students, we talk amongst faculty, and then, we approach them. It's like, hey, you got to do research. And then the brightest ones, of course, we kind of, jostle, hey, I want that student, or no, I want that student. But typically that's how it is for us. But we do train them to apply for research experience for undergrads, REUs, or internships, where the emails they send out are important. So we do train them in that aspect.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Moore?
Oh, goodness. So this is a hard question. For me, it's not fair. So I think with Black and Marine Science, it's a whole organization. So we get so many different types of emails, from students wanting to work with us for our research, but also volunteer, get mentorship, do our other types of programs. So I would say for a year, we're definitely over like the thousands of emails that we receive from BIMS for sure. And then to my emails box directly is probably also at least that many. We do have some filtering, that happens, but we do get a lot of engagement. But that's exciting for me. But sometimes I wish there was less. So I'm glad to talk about how we can do better with our emailing practices.
Awesome. Okay, next question. What time of year is the best time for a student to email if they are interested in being a grad student, undergrad researcher, or employee in your lab? If there is any good time of year. Dr. Evans.
Yeah, for me, if you want to be a grad student in my lab, the best time to email me would honestly be kind of the semester before, in the event of maybe you want to write a GRP with me or something. So the semester before, that way we have time to meet a few times, really think about the project. And if it's not the semester before, at least the summer before. So we start kind of the admission process towards kind of the late fall semester. So we really start getting going about December, November. The GRP deadline is, I think, in October or something. So anytime before then, that way we can chat, and it gives me more time to think about how I could fund a particular grad student. It gives me more time to prepare. As far as undergrads, literally an undergrad can hit me up, like tomorrow, and I could get them in the next day if they're already at Rice. I love having undergrads work in the lab, and there's always more work to be done.
Awesome. That's good to hear. Dr. Belford.
So two things. We have a course, Bio 444, or undergrad student research. And during, of course, they work on a research project. But if you're a my student, you have to apply for an REU or a master's program, or at least view a master's program, which involves contacting a professor. So we try and do that in the fall to try and get them in during the summer of the next year.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Moore?
I would say for us, it's definitely more rolling because Black and Marine Science and the work that we do, we have a lot of different programs that go on throughout the year. So we do a lot of open calls. And so we want people to apply, but people will send an email asking about opportunities, and I can say, oh, okay, we'll have something coming up in the summer, email us back then, or we have something coming up today. I'm glad you sent me an email. I was looking for you. So it really is dependent on when I do get the email and what things that we have available. But we do try to have all of our opportunities like posted so people know when the best time is to reach out.
Okay. As someone who follows Black and Marine Science on Twitter and on Instagram, definitely have them on notification if you want to see anything cool, because they post a lot of cool stuff. Okay, awesome. Next question. Of the emails you have received in the past from people wanting to join your lab, were there any that stuck out to you? What about them set them apart from others? Let's start with Dr. Evans.
Yeah, so a few, so on the side of the good emails, I like the emails that they'll mention a particular paper in the lab and say, hey, I really like this paper. I had one, probably like the greatest email I've ever had. It was slightly informal, but the student was like, hey, I'm really into marine biology. I really like fish. If being on River Monsters was a job, like that would be my career. Unfortunately, it is not. So I'd like to be a fish researcher. I was like, I'll take that. And she was an undergrad, and she's been phenomenal. She's been in the lab for like 2 years now. So that was really good. In general, though, I like when people kind of mention specific research because it helps them really stand out from the file, and it tells me that you've actually kind of done some digging to figure out what it is that we do. Because the flip side, a lot of the emails I get, they'll copy and paste a phrase off my lab website, and they'll say, I'm really interested in this junk phrase doesn't make a whole lot
of sense. Okay, Dr. Belford.
I'd say my current research student, she read the most recent paper that I published. So she was like, hey, I'm really interested in the zoantherians. Of course, before the RONUS, I took students to Trinidad to do research on the reefs. and she really wanted to get in on that, at least before she graduated. But unfortunately, she wasn't able to travel, but she still did a lot of the molecular work, which she was fortunate to present at a few conferences. But her email really talking about interest from the particular paper, and she didn't cite the entire paper, so I can tell she didn't copy and paste it. She just said, "Hey, these things are really cool. I don't know too much about it, but you spoke about the molecular analysis. What does that mean?" All right. And from an undergrad, that kind of made a big hit for me.
Okay. Awesome. Do not copy and paste from papers. Writing that down.
But mention
Dr.
the
Moore.
paper. Apparently, you got to drop papers. But no, I think it is good, like they were saying, to see that the student had taken interest in some of your work. So me, who is more on the science communication aspect, you know, in the streets, people are more like, "Oh, well, I saw you on Twitter," or "I heard you on a podcast." And I think that's really being impactful to reach more students of color, specifically Black students, because they see it's like, "Oh wow, I can do this." And so I think that has been really cool emails when you see like, "Hey, I saw you on this platform. I didn't even know we could do this. How do I become a marine scientist? How do I get involved in these opportunities?" And so I think that's what has always stood out with me with the emails that I have seen, because I think that's the work that way. You know, you have the students who find you like, "I want a research thing, and I'm just, you know, just trying to go to medical school and doesn't even really care about the work," versus the students who like you've really inspired and they want to really work with you because they didn't even know that was a possibility. Those are always the most impactful to me.
Okay, awesome. Questions similar to that. In terms of formatting of these emails, what are things that absolutely must be in these emails for you to care? For example, a CV, a background, maybe research they've done in the past that has to do with what you do, things like that. What's something you want to see in an email from an undergrad, grad student, or just someone wanting to work in your lab? Dr. Evans.
Okay, so a few things. One, you got to spell my name right. Can't be an E in there, or a C, God forbid. Next, a CV is really helpful. If you have done, you know, undergrad research or anything like that, it'd be nice to kind of drop a line and say, "Okay, hey, I've worked in this area." Another thing that's really helpful is the more you tell me about what you're interested in working on, the easier it is for me to A, remember you, and B, kind of conceptualize where I could fit you in potentially into the lab, into the work that we're doing, how I can support you. So the more you tell me about what you're interested in working on, the more you stick out, and I think it helps a lot.
Okay, awesome. Dr. Belford?
So this is very important. If you can't remember if it's doctor or not, you professor. You can't go around with Professor Belford instead of Mr. And some of my female colleagues, when I hear a student say, "Miss so-and-so," I can see them, the hairs churning inside. It's students don't look at the syllabus. That's all you got to do, check the syllabus. For me, I think because we're a minority serving institution and we mostly get rural students, most of the times they would say, "Hey, you know, I took this course with you or with this professor and we learned about this technique." And what I do a lot, and I encourage in my program, biology program, is I tell my colleagues, "Hey, sell your research in any lecture." So I talk about my research in Bio 111, the foundation biology class. So from this, as they see the biology faculty sharing their research and utilizing the techniques in like the labs as you get higher in the biology courses, then what we'll see is a student ask about, "Hey, you do research and you take students to Trinidad. What's that like?" And it's usually more of a conversation, less than an email, because we're small. But the emails are very, very important as well, because if you, once again, if you don't know, you can't go around with saying professor and then start the email. But if you don't know, these things are in the syllabus. It's easy to get. And what I see a lot of is that students will demand, oh, like, well, hold up now. I got 4 degrees. How many you got? Egg. They will demand to see you. Like, hold up, just walk outside my door. My office hours are there. I see a lot of that too. And these are things that, are negative, because you got to respect folks' time. You have to respect folks' time.
Okay, amazing. Dr. Moore.
For me, what needs to be included is because I get so many emails and I also have ADHD, I don't read long emails. Long emails make me itch. Like, I don't know. It just bothers me. It's hard. And I try to tell people, like, I put it out there, like, if you want to send me a long email, like, space it out, put some spaces in there or something. But I think people can just put the ask right up front. What do you want from me? In the first couple lines. Like, I don't really, need to know too much. And I think that would be more effective. But also, I think something that people don't use as efficiently as they could is the subject. The subject can save you or really get an email open. If you put like something exciting in the subject, I'm probably going to open it, like, student looking to waste your time. That's how the emails really come across, like, in the subject line. So it's like, oh, exciting student wanting to work, or I don't know, do you have time for a quick chat? Because again, I do receive too many emails, and people on my team probably don't like this, but I do prefer having conversations. Don't have to be a whole hour. No, we can have a 15-minute conversation and talk about things quickly and have me to assess what's really going on and what it is that you need and how I can best help you. So I think for me, it's like to keep it short and sweet, put the ask right up front, and use your subject efficiently and effectively. Yeah.
Okay, that is great advice. I've had trouble with, what do I put in the subject line? And also, is it doctor? I don't know. A lot of people actually just ask me to use their first name, but I feel like that's disrespectful to just call someone their first name. So I don't know. I would say definitely go with Dr. Belford's advice. You never know. Okay, awesome. We've had some really great advice here. The next question is, does this advice that you've given for undergrads and graduate students also apply to recent grads or just people who are looking for jobs in your lab? If not, what should they do differently to get a foot in the door? Dr. Evans.
Yeah, so I'd say that my advice basically goes for undergrads and potential prospective grad students. And it's same with Dr. Belford. You can't go wrong calling me professor. And the more you tell me about what you're interested in doing, the better, and the more you stand out from kind of the cookie cutter emails that I get so many of this.
Awesome. Dr. Belford?
I literally, for this semester, hired one of my former undergrad student researchers that I took to Trinidad. And it's all about the impression this dude, from his emails, from his conversations. Because I'm the program coordinator, I receive emails from potential faculty that want to be hired on. And what I've noticed is that, all right, they attach the CV, the statement line, looking for hire, but their emails they're brief to the point, and they're spaced out as well. Little spaces as well. Easy to read, quick. First of all, I can't imagine getting 1,000 emails. I mean, 20 when I go teach 2 sections, and then I come back, I'm like, oh my gosh, 20 emails. I mean, and these emails are from, hey, professor, I've got the flu. I won't be able to make it to class. I mean, hey, man, sorry, get well soon, to, hey, I missed class today. What did we do in class today? It's in the syllabus. I mean, these things can frustrate you with 20 emails versus 1,000. Oh my gosh. But, professionally, it shows up because when we invite these students back to speak in their particular careers, they mention the same thing, the level of professionalism that we gave to them. They didn't understand it until they were on the other side in their careers. So it's kind of very helpful to, as we train them, it mightn't set just yet, but eventually the ones who are successful, it sets well with them.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Moore?
I would say for us, for me, it's kind of similar to the student, but it's more of, I guess, what is the skill set? If it's like a job that you have, like, okay, I can do this really well. Like, do you have any positions for this? And of course, the CV is attached because that gives me a little bit more background information into what it is that you have done and what you can do. But I would still say it's definitely still brief, definitely to the point. And then also that subject is really important. And I would say in that one, it would be almost really vital to put like seeking a job, like something like that in the subject so I can know. Because if you put it up front, like, I'm not going to waste your time. Like if we don't have the job, I'm not going to, lead you on. But I can say, hey, this is something that we could have coming up in the future or make some recommendations. But also, again, it's important to put, like I said, what your skill set is. Because some people just come like, hey, you got a job? Well, what do you do? Like what? What kind of job you want? So please, say what it is that you're looking for and what you would be best at. And I think I want to say for Black people, since this is Black and Marine Science, is to really find that. I think there are sometimes we can just be looking for anything like, yo, sis, I'm just trying to eat. But it's like, no, we can actually find something for you that will, go to your skill set. And that's what you should seek out, because that's what you're going to have the best time doing anyway. So I would just say, be mindful of that. You don't have to just be looking for anything. You can kind of put some standards and see what it is that you do like and put that in the email as well.
Okay, awesome. You guys mentioned in the past that because of COVID, a lot of students were not able to do REU opportunities and other field work opportunities and even some lab work opportunities. What advice would you have for those students who are going into the workforce now, cold emailing? What if they don't have any lab experience because they couldn't get any during COVID times? Do you have any advice for what they should be putting in these emails to kind of get their foot in the door? Dr. Evans.
Yeah, so that's actually a great question. So sometimes you don't have the opportunity to get a bunch of research done, or sometimes you have even done research, but you're interested in moving in a completely different field or completely different direction.
Dr. Evans, you're a little quiet. Is there any way you could raise the volume?
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to hear you.
Is this a little better?
A little bit, a tiny bit, but you're just a little quiet.
All right, I gotta switch my whole jaw. Give me a second. Is this better?
A little bit. We'll
Okay.
just. I think you're okay.
Cool. So that's a great question. So sometimes students don't have the research prior because maybe they decided, oh, I'm interested in going to grad school, and they're like seniors or something like that, so they haven't had the time to put in work in the lab. So one thing you can do is you can tell the potential PI that you're emailing what you're interested in working with. And hopefully you've done a little bit of background research so that you can, kind of put together a cohesive couple sentences to describe what you might be interested in. Because sometimes, to me, when I'm looking at these emails, I'm gauging potential versus, what you've already done. And some students haven't done that much, but they have some really great ideas. And ultimately, that's really more what I'm interested in.
Okay, awesome. Dr. Belford.
That's a tough one because I tell you what, surveys have said that student grades tanked during the pandemic. And I can tell you also, you all already know this, there was a mass exit of academia because, they couldn't handle it because, you're online, you're asking a student, hey, so what do you think about what is the waste product of photosynthesis? silence. Okay, phone a friend, silence again. I mean, it was really frustrating. I guess what we can do, at least, what I do is sometimes you have to give someone a chance. My current research student, undergrad student, she's graduating now, and she's literally been one of the best in our program. And she was homeschooled, so I mean, sometimes you just kind of have to take a chance when send a polite email to meet during office hours. And then after you meet, you kind of realize, well, this student seemed responsible. I think that's the biggest thing. After the email is ownership and being responsible. And we see a lot of this with work study. They say, okay, we're supposed to work Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And they show up Monday and not Wednesday and Friday. And then we have to chase them. I'm like, hey, you committed to this. So it's that lack of commitment that, unfortunately, it's just negative, because if you're doing that now, it transfers over to a career. But, I'd say, sometimes as faculty, we have to take a chance on a student and see how it goes and hope for the best. It doesn't always work out, but every now and then, it does work out.
Yeah, so this is an interesting question, because I think with the pandemic highlighted is something that Black and Brown students have already been experiencing since time. Is just not having access to opportunities, not having access to research, not being able to go into graduate school programs, having the same, experiences that their white colleagues may have. And so I think this with the pandemic really put this on the forefront and say, hey, this is the thing that's happening largely to a lot of folks. So now how do we do this? And so I think I would answer the question prior to the pandemic, and how you answer it now is to be honest. I think that, some students can kind of shoot themselves in the foot really by saying they have this experience or talking about things that they really can't do. And then they get themselves in a situation that's not the best. So I think just being open and honest about the research that you do have, and that you haven't had the opportunities, that you're looking for someone to give you a chance. And I think that email, seeing that, would excite me more than someone who's going to get in the lab after lying, who know they never did, that they don't know how to pipe it. Now they're messing up my experiments and things like that. So I think for us, and I hope other professors and other PIs are having an understanding that the pandemic did put a wrench in a lot of folks' plans. But again, this has been happening to students disproportionately well before the pandemic. And so we should have always been taking into consideration who we're providing these opportunities to in our labs. So yeah.
Okay, those are awesome answers. I'm definitely one of the students in that boat. Wasn't able to do a single REU because of COVID. It was so frustrating, but it's really nice to hear that you guys still give students like me a chance. So it's awesome to hear that. So glad. Next question is going to be similar to a cold email. I know a lot of biology people are on Twitter. How do you feel about a cold DM? Is that the same as a cold email? Is it unprofessional? How do you feel about it, Dr. Evans?
Man, I hate cold DMs. Do not cold DM me.
Okay, do not cold DM him.
So yeah, my Twitter is true. My Twitter is for outreach and all that stuff. But my Twitter is also where I kind of kick back and crack jokes and read memes and stuff. So and so my DMs are all just kind of my buddies like sending me memes. So like if you want to stand out, do not send me. I get it a lot too. I have to put it in my bio, like email for work stuff. Like
oh wow.
And you'd be surprised. I got people DMing me asking me for postdocs, all kinds of crazy stuff. So seminar invitations and it's just hard for me to keep up with things. I like to keep my work in my email. So yeah, it might be different for other people. Do not DM me for work stuff.
Okay, good to know. Dr. Belford.
I don't think I've had that experience. I do have two, I mean, I've got marine nostalgia, but that's where, I ask persons, hey, can you tell me your story if you'd like me to put your story on there? But I mean, I really haven't experienced that. So I really can't answer to that. I guess
Let me come off mute. Let me come off. I'm like on the edge of my seat. No, I mean, I don't know. The streets may or may not know, but I love the Twitter. It is my good friend. And I personally am the queen of sliding in people's DMs. So I really can't not accept it. Sometimes it does bother me because I'm like, bro, you could have sent me an email, but I slide in so many DMs and it's very effective for me. Like I'll slide in somebody's DMs, get a response. I've gotten partnerships from like big organizations with blue checks who I never even thought would respond, but they're like somebody is lurking in the DMs and they respond. And then also I've had people who said, hey sis, we sent you an email. I'm going to DM you. Maybe you'll see this. And I did. And I actually saw the DM. And then I went and checked the email and it led to something really cool. So for me, I love social media. Like I said, sometimes it can get overwhelming. I do get a lot. I'll say less DMs than I do emails, but it's still a lot. But because I use it and it has been effective, I don't shy away from people talking to me that way. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I found that having a biology Twitter has been really helpful for me as an undergrad or someone who's going to be graduating soon. There's a lot of opportunities on Twitter. So what I'm hearing is if you see a tweet that says looking for a postdoc, okay, DM them. But if it's just somebody, maybe see if their email is in their bio. That's what I'm getting from you guys. Okay. Similar to being bothered in the DMs, a lot of, I guess, advice that we hear from other colleagues and peers in college is if they don't answer you the first time, keep emailing them. Does that get annoying, or is that actually really nice because you feel that you're going to miss an email or you're glad they emailed you again because you did miss it? A lot of students are scared to double email or triple email. How do you guys feel about that practice, Dr. Evans?
Triple email me. I'm like skimming my emails all the time, and like sometimes I'll see something, I'll even put a little red flag next to it and then totally forget about it. And so when I get double emails, triple emails, I don't think it's ever gotten to quadruple email yet. But the more you ping me, it looks good too, because if you're trying to get a PhD, I was taught that the P in PhD stands for persistence. So if you are pinging me, that's going to stand out to me. And that's just me. That's how I'm crazy with my email. It's weird. I get that. It might not be the same for
Dr. Belford.
I don't mind. I don't mind because my job, I got assessment, I got to teach, I got to do my research, I got to order supplies, so I may come back, but then when I get home, I may not check anything, because I may need to degas a little bit. So yeah, I don't mind because one may have slipped through the cracks. So then I can get back to that and clarify that. Yeah, it's no problem for me. But I don't get thousands now, so I don't know what the thousands person would.
Don't start, Dr. Belford. You sent some of those emails, Dr. Belford. So, anyways, let me see. For me, the double email. So it's hard. So sometimes it can be annoying because I probably have seen it. I do see the emails as they come in because I'm one of those who keeps it on my phone, and then I'll file it away. If it's easy, I usually will respond right away. You'll see it sent from Dr. Moore on the go. I mean, I read your email from my phone and it was quick and I responded. Now, if I open your email and it's long and I really need to think about it, it hits mark as unread. Mark as unread. And that means I need to go to my laptop and actually think about the answer and, write it down. And so now that might be a couple days has gone by because you weren't easy. And so when you double email me, it's like, man, I was going to get to it. Like, believe in me. But then there are sometimes when I get a double email, I was like, ooh, I didn't see this the first time. Thank you for the double email. So it's really hand in hand. I think what's helpful is the Google If you use Gmail, they now have a feature that says you received this 3 days ago. You gonna respond? And so that's on Google, and so that's really helpful as a tool. But yeah, I guess I don't mind the double email, but like I said, I'm gonna get to it eventually. That's it.
That's really good to hear. I've had to send a couple double emails. They both turned out okay, but sometimes people don't answer their email. You guys are really busy, so I completely understand. But I just wanted for students, because as an undergrad, I'm kind of scared to triple or double email. I don't want to bother you guys, and then it shoots me in the foot. So it's really nice to hear that you guys don't mind that much. If anything, it's a nice reminder. Awesome. Another question for you guys. As someone who is a senior, it's kind of hard to find people to email. Let's say I graduate from UCR, I'm no longer in an institution. Do you have any recommendations for, I don't know, Indeed for Scientists, or a place to look for people to email? Let's say, should I go to college websites? For me, I've just Googled marine science internship, or I go to Twitter. That's why I made a science Twitter, things like that. So is there a hidden repository somewhere of scientists to email to get in their lab as a grad student, or just as a volunteer, or someone who recently graduated? What advice do you have for students looking for people to email? Dr. Evans.
I think there was, up until maybe even a few years ago, maybe it's even up to date now, there was a repository of kind of marine biology programs in the U.S. And it might have at the time just been undergraduate programs, but if they have a marine undergraduate program, they most likely have a professor who's doing marine biology. So it might be worth pinging them to see if they have funding for a grad student. Twitter is great, especially if people are putting out calls for grad students and things like that. You can just kind of search. You definitely have to be a little creative, because I don't think there's an Indeed for graduate marine science programs. Could be wrong.
I wish.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Okay, Dr. Belford.
Have you seen BIM's newsletter? Because a lot of the things, and Dr. Moore, I really appreciate this happening. Hey, I'm a huge believer now, because a lot of the things and opportunities, newsletter. I mean, I'm getting my stuff ready for promotion in a few years. All these opportunities, I'm on blogs, I'm on this, I'm on that, getting paid for it. It starts there, I think. And a lot of the opportunities I send to students through emails to apply for RUs and internships, all came from Twitter. I don't know how, I've been on Twitter for, a few years now. I use Twitter to review for my exams the night before, because the quiet students who don't say anything in class, they sure be saying a lot when you're, trying to find out questions coming on the exam. But Twitter there's a lot of info, from postdocs to grads. I mean, and you see it all the time. I'd be hitting follow. Yeah, I mean, and they just keep coming. So yeah.
Dr. Moore.
Well, thank you, Dr. Belford. I didn't want to have to shout out BIMS myself, so I'm glad you said it for me. But no, I think the community that we have created is definitely what you're talking about, but also just the resources. And I'll have to shout out, Simone Barkley and the rest of the BIMS teams who put together our Padlet. And that's where it has all of our job resources and opportunities. We work very hard to get salaries put on all of our job postings. So everything is very transparent. When people reach out to me to ask, like, hey, should I work in this person's lab? I'm gonna keep it 100. No. Keep it $1. No. So I think there is just like that direct community and mentorship, and it's just like peer-to-peer mentoring and networking that we have in our community. So if you aren't a member of BIMS yet and you're listening, please join. But I think we need more spaces like that where you can just call it out and say, hey, is this going to be a safe space for me to be? Because I think that's when you're talking about these emails, you're talking about a place that you're going to be spending 4 or 5 years. If you're thinking about a PhD program and a job, maybe you spend the rest of your life. And if you haven't even done anything to think about like the environment, I think that's even more important than the first email. Like, hey, do I even want to work here? What they say when you go to the cookout? Who all over there? Like, these are the type of questions that we need to start asking for these departments. Is this going to be a safe space for me? Because you work hard to get an email, you get in this lab, and it's completely tragic. And it's like, did it really even matter that you sent the email in the first place? No, because there was another email that should have been sent. So I think that's something that's important as well as we're thinking about that.
Okay, that is amazing advice. Personally, I got into a lab once and I didn't check what it was going to be like for a Black girl in that lab. And let me tell you, it was not my favorite place to be. So definitely ask your peoples if it is a good place for you to be, because I have experienced that and it is not fun at all. So amazing advice from Dr. Moore. We are almost to the end here. So if anyone in the live stream watching this has any questions from the YouTube, please put them in the chat in the YouTube. I'm hoping that someone will see them and put them in the Zoom call so that I can see them. But before we end, if anyone has any questions from someone watching this, please type them now. While that is happening, I do have a fun one. What is the worst thing a student has ever emailed you? Just so I know not to do it. Dr. Evans.
Ooh, tricky. Again, I think the worst thing I've gotten has been like a Mr. Corey, but misspelled. And there's like gradients. So like Korey, I'm gonna like, I hate that. But if I get a Corey, I'm gonna delete your email. That kind of stuff. Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Belford.
I wouldn't say it's worse, but if a student says like in class, like after a month, Mr. Belford, can you explain? I'm like, whoop, Mr. Belford was my dad. And that's all I say. And then I continue. And then most of the time they correct themselves. But I only do that in a crowd. So I don't know if you like Finding Nemo when he asked Crush the turtle, and he asked like, hey, Mr. And he's like, whoa, dude, Mr. Mr. Turtle was my dad. That's where I took it from. Like, whoop, dude, Mr. Belford was my dad. But other than that, yeah, you can't go around. I tell you what, my female colleagues in my program, they cringe whenever a student miss so-and-so. Like, oh my gosh, I walk quick the other way. Because you talk about wailing and gnashing of teeth. I always say this, you can't go wrong with saying professor if you don't know, you know?
Okay, good advice. Dr. Moore.
Oh man, for me, yeah, definitely the name thing. It's so wild. Like, people think I'm from the Princess and the Frog, Tiana. That's not me. Tira, Tira, who that? It's like, this is not me. So I actually don't mind if people don't call me Dr. Moore. I'm fine with it, but you need to call me Tiara. Like, you can't just make up a whole nother name. So it's either Dr. Moore or Tiara. These other people, no. So that is really like off-putting when you do open an email. It's like, hi, Tara, with an exclamation point. Want to come work with you? Who is the email even? Who are you talking to? So I think that right there is just like the first step. If you're going to take the time to email somebody, please at least know their name, y'all. Like, what are you emailing for? So yeah, that's strange. I think I don't really get too many other emails. I think I've gotten like just emails asking me for things that I might not do. You know, everybody thinks that, I research sharks when I don't. So like just stuff like that. So it's like, clear, you didn't look into my background. You don't know what I do. So why are you emailing me? So yeah, that's all.
Okay, speaking of looking into your background, what is a good place to research beforehand, before emailing a professor or just someone you want to work with? Where should they look, would you say, for scientists? Dr. Evans?
I think a good lab website. So if they have a lab website, that's a good place to check. If they don't have a lab website, might even be a red flag. So yeah, right. It's 2022. We can have websites. So yeah, I think that's a good place to start. And if you're really interested after the website, maybe pop over to Google Scholar and check a couple of top papers and things like that.
Okay, Dr. Belford.
Shout out to BIMS Week 1. Google me. Google me, BIMS Week 1, because Dr. Evans, our websites suck. I hope they're listening. SUCK. 10 years they can't figure it out. My boss, the provost, a couple of months ago asked, so, once again, 10 years later, still taking up advice on what to tell them for a website. So I sat next to my colleagues. Hey, I ain't worrying about y'all because you can Google me. I got my own website. And one of the professors went in to check, and she's like, oh man, Dr. Belford, you have a really cool website. Hey, I can't depend on y'all here. So actually, BIMS Week 1, we're in 3. All right. Getya.com.
Okay.
StanBelford.com.
Dang, you took my answer. I was like, you got to Google them. But no, Googling the person you're trying to work with is important because I really think it'll tell you what level of where they are, especially if you're thinking about, types of outreach and communication. That really helps you to see what they're doing if they are, Googleable, if you'll say. And then you can look into, there's things like ResearchGate where their papers are. People post, their research papers there and they're all listed in a repository. Twitter, we talked about, that's something that you can meet people as well and find out information about what they do in their free time. There's still a little science, but you also see a little foolishness in there as well. And then a new social media that I actually have found myself lurking on quite more is the LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a good place where you can get more professional social media engagement. You can see, where people are connected. There's a lot of large, companies and businesses and people who have LinkedIn. So that's another place where you can, find out information about people you want to work with.
Okay, that is really good advice. Awesome. I'm so glad that Twitter is being used more. It's been really awesome to see all of you guys on Twitter. I actually learned about BIMS Week and this opportunity that I'm doing right now, hint, hint, nudge, nudge to any undergrads who need a gig on Twitter. So definitely make yourself a professional Twitter. If you're on there doing something silly, make yourself a professional Twitter. Be professional on it, and maybe you'll get some cool opportunities. We're almost to the end here. We do not have any questions in the YouTube chat, but I just wanted to tell everyone here that they love the BIMS newsletter. So people are reading it. That's awesome. Shout out woo, woo, to BIMS. Awesome. So glad people are reading it. I think this will be maybe the last question here. How do you guys feel about getting emails from people outside of your institution? A lot of you mentioned getting emails from your own undergrads or graduate students. How do you feel about getting emails from undergrads or grad students from other institutions? Is there a different thing they should say? Should they introduce that they're from the other institution? Is there anything different that they should do? Dr. Evans?
For me, I love getting emails from outside the institution as well. I think they should definitely mention where they're from and things like that. And if it's about a work opportunity, if you kind of give me more time or more of a lead up before kind of when you want to start or anything like that, that'll be better because I have to work out, if it's something over the summer, I have to work out where we're going to house you or how I'm even going to pay you because you're not in the university, finance system and things like that. And if it's, just a question about a paper or a collaboration, I love getting those kinds of emails and I will respond to those emails at home. And if it's more of a work thing, then I'll wait to the next day. But, yeah.
Okay. Dr. Belford.
I guess because of my position being the program coordinator for biology, that's welcome. I have to answer them not only from students, but also from potential hires for our program. So we're a part of the University of Tennessee system. So it's like 4, different universities. So that's, I welcome them. But make sure, you space it out, be brief, be to the point, and that's for both professional and students. And that goes from anywhere from students to sales personnel to, now that you mention it, Dr. Moore, them long emails be like, woof, yeah, don't do it.
But please help me cut down these words. Oh man, so emails from outside of places. I mean, yes, for me, definitely. I think for me, it kind of comes with the territory. And I think there's good, there's always a lot of, like, I get a lot of emails just from students who just want to say hello, like, oh, they're the only Black person in their lab. They don't have any other Black people in the department. They just want to say like, hi, or thank you for BIMS, or like, how are there any other opportunities? So I get a lot of just emails in that nature. And so that, as y'all can imagine, can be like a lot sometimes. So I'm like, dang, these advisors are just getting paid to do nothing for their students, and I'm taking care of all these people. But I'm grateful that people, do have the space and they can email. And so I don't want people to think that they can't. So I think, I get a lot of emails from outside of them, but people just want to say hello when it's really for nothing else. Just to say hi and get some encouragement. So that's cool.
Okay, awesome. That kind of wraps up our questions for today. I don't have any other ones for you guys, but do you have any last tips for students before we wrap up today? Dr. Evans.
My last tip would be, be bold, be courageous. We PIs and we doctors we really are just regular people. And don't be afraid to send that second email, third email. Don't reach out.
Okay. Dr. Belford.
In your response email, if a person should click your name, it takes them right to your website. Get your website. I'll say it another time. Get your website, because it is literally like your CV or resume, easy access.
Yeah, all of that. What the title of this was, so you think you can email, and you can. Just take those tips and things that we talked about keeping it short, being effective with the subject, but also just making thinking a second, why am I sending this email? Like, what do I want from sending this email? And then hit send.
Okay. All right. So that wraps up our questions. I hope everyone watching is no longer afraid to send a cold email to a PI, a professor, someone you want to work with. I hope this gave you some bravery and let you know that they're just regular people, just like us. They want to hear from you. So don't be scared to send them any triple emails, maybe a quadruple if it's a busy week. Maybe keep it brief, have that subject line to the point. Make sure you do your research. No misters, misses if they go by doctor. If you don't know, maybe do professor. Look at their website. Maybe if they don't have a lab website, that might be a red flag. Look at their social media. What classes do they teach? I personally, to get into some labs, have read some papers and kind of asked myself, am I actually interested in this? What questions would I ask this professor? If they were my professor and they were teaching me this stuff, what would I ask? I guess one last thing, just personally, would it be cool, or is it something you guys look for if a student asks a question about your research in the email? Does that show, or is that just another thing? You're like, oh, it's another student asking me a question, or is it something that shows rigor or that they actually did their research? You could give me a thumbs up or thumbs down, or you can say what you want.
Oh, I love that. I don't
Okay.
get that enough, frankly. To be honest, I love that. You get an instant response.
Oh, maybe I found a hack, guys. Ask
go.
a question about the research. Okay, Dr. Belford?
Yeah, I agree. Just give me another chance to babble some more about how cool my research is. Yeah. Quick response
Hey,
for that.
Dr. Moore?
Indifferent. It's just another line for me to read, and I already know what I did. So if you put it in there, that's cool. But I think it again, like just if it helps me to know what it is you want from me, then yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, I've always heard my entire scientific career, scientists love nothing more than to talk about their research. So I've kept that in mind when I'm emailing and talking to anyone that's a scientist. Well, thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. If you have any questions about today's panel, please follow the panelists on their socials. I'm going to go each one. You guys can say your socials. Dr. Evans.
My social media is Twitter at Sternarkella. That's at capital STERNARCHELLA. You can just type my name in on Twitter, it'll come up too. And then Corey.evans@rice.edu if you want to email me.
Okay. Dr. Belford.
Twitter, it's at Stanton Belford, and another one at Marine Nostalgia. And on IG, Stan B PhD.
All right. For me on both Twitter and IG, it is curly_scientist.
Okay. Awesome. Make sure to follow the Black in Marine Science Instagram, Twitter, get on their newsletter for more events this week. Up next, we have Where Do We Go From Here on the 30th at 5 p.m. EST. So if you're on PST like me, when is that? So make sure it's on EST. Make sure you tune in to BIMS TV and you won't want to miss it. And that'll wrap up today's panel.